So, there's really not much that I talk about on this channel or any of my channels really that scares me. Even when it comes to this whole ship stuff, I don't find any of what's going on there to be scary either. And anybody that I see talking about it, especially those that have platforms, are really calling out the BS. I don't really see anybody saying, oh no, what's happening on this ship is going to be the end of us. I mainly see people saying, I've seen this script before. I've seen this agenda play out before. You're not going to get me this time. Yeah, you'll see videos and clips of people saying that they see people wearing masks and hearing people wearing masks due to this whole thing. But overall, it's pretty much people just pushing back and exposing what just looks like to be a bad Hollywood movie script. But like I said, there's not really much that really scares me, but there are things that downright disturb me, and naming just things off the top of my head, what the so-called powers that be do to children, the American food supply, and data centers. But in this video, I do want to talk about data centers because I saw something pop up this morning and I really thought to myself, what are these things truly for? We're told that the reason why they're building so many data centers because they have to beat China in the AI race. China is the excuse, the boogeyman behind the uprising of these data centers. And you're going to find when it comes to the public, less and less people are believing that. But anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this happens to be because I saw this news article right here. Now, one would not consider Ohio to be a very big state. Land size wise, it's anywhere between a small and medium state. It's cozy. And yet, for whatever reason, it is number 6 in the United States when it comes to data centers. It's become home to more than 200 facilities, and most of them, 114 of them, are located in just the Columbus area alone. Now, one would think that they are currently running out of land to build more, that they are just nothing but a bunch of ticks fighting over a specific body part. But they don't want to slow down. Get this, research published by the University of Virginia has come out stating nearly 80 new data centers could be built around Ohio by 2030. So even though Ohio comes in at number 34 when you're ranking the states by land size, it is the 7th highest populated state in the country, so related to its size, Ohio is highly populated, and yet they are building more and more data centers, more than 80 on top of the ones they already have. Just one data center alone in New Albany, the Google data center, has a 250 megawatt capacity, and based on calculations, 250 megawatts is enough electricity for at least 160,000 average homes. And right next to this Google data center, Vantage Data Centers is in the process of building a 1.5 million square foot data center campus, which will have a 192 megawatt capacity, which could power 126,000 average homes. That is crazy. These residents, they're fighting back. They're saying, why do you keep building data centers here? You already have 200 here. Why are you building more? The only response they get is that Ohio has what these data centers need. These data centers have been a drain on their water supply. Their utility bills keep increasing, especially when it comes to electricity. They're dealing with smog, noise pollution. There has been no positives, no benefits whatsoever when it comes to these data centers and the public. So the question happens to be, what is the real purpose behind these data centers? And it's not just Ohio, but these ticks are building data centers on top of land, on top of land, on top of land. Like for example, over in Utah, they are building one of the largest data centers in the country, if not the world, a 9 gigawatt data center. And they're saying that they're going to use their own energy, but nobody believes that. That's just businessman talk, because the individual building this is the businessman behind Shark Tank. There's going to be real repercussions here, but it's not just stopping with the land. Now we're getting news coming out that they want to build data centers inside your home. Yes, they just can't get enough. Reading this article from Yahoo Finance, NVIDIA wants the next AI factory to sit in your garage. Through a partnership with California startup Span, the chipmaker is teaming with home builder Polk Group, I think that's how you pronounce it, to deploy residential XFRA units, small data centers bolted onto new houses that tap unused grid capacity through Span smart panels. Yeah, you thought AI inside every new car by 2027, AI surveillance, surveilling your every move as you drive, was as bad as it could get, but no, again, they want data centers inside homes. Span CEO Arch Rayo says the model helps meet what is clearly an insatiable demand for more compute, much more cost effectively, while benefiting individual consumers. Homeowners get a flat fee for power, so you still gotta pay, and Wi-Fi while being compensated based on Span's energy and network use. Yeah, I would not use their Wi-Fi one bit. They say that these XFRA nodes are only going to be installed outside new homes, But what if your old home is right next to one of these new homes being built? And not just that, I think eventually they're going to come out and say that we all have to do our part and to support these data centers, again, to fight China and to advance AI. And whether you have an old home or a new home, no matter what, you're going to have one of these mini data centers inside your home to do your part. I just have that funny feeling it's going to be something mandatory in a not so distant future, just like these AIs inside these cars. That is crazy. Like, what are we talking about here? They are so insatiable for land and resources, they now want to have homes built with data centers. What timeline am I living in? I feel so far removed from the Berenstein Bears timeline, I really don't know. But moving on, it seems like we have gotten the release of the UFO files, even though people are still not over the Jeffrey files and still want to talk about that, but they're like, no, here you go, here's UFOs. But they released things like the astronauts on the moon, and you can see lights in the skies, which probably are nothing more than the studio lights where this was being filmed. But overall, pretty much what has been released so far are nothing but a bunch of grainy videos and white orbs, things you would already see in the skies already where they would just say, it's just SpaceX, bro. But they do say that the good stuff is still coming, and there are some people theorizing that the good stuff is going to coincide with Steven Spielberg's movie Disclosure Day, which I do see this movie being used to condition people that there are aliens walking among us, hybrids and the sorts. I really don't think the timing between the Disclosure Day movie and the disclosure of these files is a coincidence. But going back to the website, it also seems like certain files are being removed in real time as well, just like with the Jeffrey files. For example, this one right here, Serial 153. When you try to download the files inside, it'll say not found. But luckily, somebody had saved it before they had redacted this file, and this is what was inside, this photo right here of this craft, which again looks a little like these things we see in the skies today that they always say is just SpaceX. The only other thing that's found in this file is this newspaper clipping right here that sounds pretty convinced it's a UFO. It ends with, just go ahead and say what it looks like. Sure, you're right. It is a flying saucer. A lot of folks have reported seeing the things. This, however, is the first time that one has ever been photographed over Oak Ridge. Recently, this strange object was seen above Texas, and they said this was just SpaceX. This is what was seen back in 1937 over Vancouver, and it looks awfully similar to a lot of the sightings we see in the skies today that people claim is just SpaceX. But anyway, it's very interesting they went ahead and redacted that. Maybe they have another reason, who knows. A lot of what they had released looked like the white version of those black things that I talk about quite often on all my channels that are seen flying in the skies. This is probably the most unique looking thing out of the files, and looks like your Meemaw's 1975 Christmas tree ornament. It looks like the star that goes on the top. You know, the one where she needs a ladder to put on top of the tree, she falls off the ladder, and you have to hear all Christmas how she hurt herself. I mean, nobody's really buying this garbage, and if you read a lot of the responses across social media when it comes to what was released, people are greatly displeased. But like the Jeffrey files, they said that wait for phase 2, wait for phase 3, that's really going to be what really blows the lid off everything. Like, for example, Tim Hypeman Burchett, he posted this today on X. Remember, the feds told us these files didn't exist, and the real Donald Trump stood up to the deep state. The first drop will be big, but in comparison to what is coming, they will be a drop in the bucket. I would say, quote unquote, holy crap is coming. Swank here responded, why wasn't this holy crap stuff dropped with the rest of it? This time-gated stuff seems, it also seems exactly like some phase 1, phase 2 BS like they did with the Jeffrey files. And we know we didn't get everything when it came to Jeffrey. Grifting 101, sorry my man, these are embarrassing. It's pretty clear we don't have anything. There's nothing in the files that just came out, you chicken. You know what? I have to stop. I have to get off X. What in the world is a chicken fried turnip? I find this comical. I really do, because it's like, what did people expect? After the whole Jeffrey stuff, what did people expect with the alien stuff? Did people really think that out of all the stuff that the government lies to us about, distracts us with, all these psyops, these different agendas, did they really think that the one thing that they would be honest with are aliens and UFOs? And I know some people out there will be saying, well, Minutes of Horror, you're talking about it. You're distracting yourself with all this UFO nonsense. And really, it's just that I needed something lighthearted to talk about after this whole data center stuff, because this whole data center stuff is the real problem. There's a lot of real problems out there, but when it comes to these data centers, they're even being built without people knowing. There'll be protests, and the protesters will say, where did this data center come from? We had no knowledge it was even being built, and suddenly it's right here. But yeah, I get comments here and there where people tell me, can you at least do a positivity video, at least here or there, to break up from all the negativity? And I say no, because this channel, it's called Minutes of Horror, and it's about the horrors, I can't even say the word right, the horrors of reality. But if you really want some positivity in your day-to-day, read these comments along social media when it comes to this UFO disclosure. You even have one guy say that him and his family, even the dog, dressed up as aliens in the name of Trump because they thought this was it, that they were going to get some big information, and they had a big... You know what? Just read the comments. It's hilarious. But I do think also this is them testing the waters. There is a major psyop coming involving aliens and UFOs. They're going to reveal something that is really going to shatter a lot of people. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that this is the government. A lot of psyops will be played. And a lot of people had spoken about Project Bluebeam, how they'll be using aliens to push back religion, create a one world religion, a one world government. And I think we are now slowly beginning those phases to something much bigger that will really have people questioning a lot of things. And again, we just have to stay prepared physically, mentally, and spiritually. But talking about these missing scientists, this channel Decoded Propaganda has come up with an interesting look, but also another scientist that may be involved that we have not heard of before.
We need to talk about the missing scientists, because I just discovered one thing that no one else is looking at. Their spouses. So I was doing some research today on the missing scientists and just connecting all the interesting dots about how they all left their phones behind, and most of them left their wallets behind, and one of them had even wiped their phone clean and cleared their iCloud. And just, there's a lot of similarities. All of them just walked out in the morning. There's so many different things about these missing scientists that are suspicious. But now there's another one that just dropped. Ingrid Lane went missing on October 15th, 2023. And I thought, okay, if this lady was working for Los Alamos, I'm going to be intrigued, because I'd just done a bunch of research on these other missing scientists being associated with that lab. And what do you know? A great investigative journalist, Alicia Valdez Rodriguez, just dropped a bunch of info about this lady. And it turns out her husband worked for the DOD. And why is that significant? Well, because when I was looking into these other missing scientists, what I found was another strange pattern. Those that were married to people affiliated with these same laboratories and government agencies. Melissa Casillas worked as an administrative assistant at Los Alamos Laboratories, and her husband worked there as well. They usually carpooled, and she had dropped him off the morning that she went missing. The story gets weird because she went back to her house after she dropped him off and saw her daughter. She told her daughter that she went back to get her badge because she forgot it, but her husband told the police that she did have it, and he would have known that because they were going into the laboratory together. In fact, her family believes that he has something to do with her disappearance. Now, there's no record of Anthony Chavez or Steven Garcia having a significant other, but from all reports, both of them were very sound of mind. So one would think that if they're just walking away from their houses, they're doing so consciously. Which brings us to McCasland, because he's the highest profile disappearance. He was a top-tier military leader. He had deep ties to the Pentagon. He served as commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, managing a $4.4 billion budget. He directly oversaw the most black budget programs in the United States. And he has unique ties to UAP disclosure because he was actually a resource for Tom DeLonge, the guy from Blink-182 that's super into UFOs and was doing this whole project about them. And just like the others, this guy left in the morning, didn't say where he was going, and his wife corroborates that story. But his wife, get this, Susan McCaslin Wilkerson. She reached colonel in the Air Force Reserve. She was a finalist for NASA Group 9. She held leadership roles with defense contractors as the program manager for Boeing SVS and positions at Raytheon. Which brings us to the most recent reporting, which actually was the oldest missing persons of all these different scientists, Ingrid Lane. Now, it was difficult to find details on her career, except for this investigative journalist that was able to uncover a bunch, because it was kind of stripped from the information. All these news articles were saying, they didn't really want to release personal information about her. Why not her? Why are we covering up her career path when we know about these other ones? I think it's because it was intentionally being suppressed. So she was a bioengineer and neuroscientist for Mind Research Network, which also contracted with Los Alamos National Laboratory. But her husband was an astrophysicist for the Department of Defense and builds software for directed energy weapons for the Air Force. So now we've got 5 scientists all missing from the same state within a 100-mile radius, all near Los Alamos Labs. 3 of them who are married, all of their spouses have direct ties to government agencies. Conspiracy is not the right word anymore. We need to talk about the missing scientists.
I did not know that about Susan Wilkerson, General McCaslin's wife, but a lot of these individuals that have gone missing or are now deceased have spouses that are high up in these same places. And it just makes you wonder if all these husband and wives work at the same places or have the same credentials pretty much. Why is it only one that's either being taken or being found deceased and not the other? Is taking their loved one kind of hushing them up, or maybe they know a little bit more than what they're letting on?
America, data centers in the United States. There are a load of data centers here in the United States, and it's only going to get worse. So let me show you how many data centers there are in America, how much power is being used, and what they're going to do coming up, because it gets even worse. So this is a map of data center infrastructure here in the United States. This comes from November, the end of 2025. You can see that data center infrastructure has permeated basically every inch of the United States. And it's gotten worse since this, by the way. Here's the amount of power usage. Any of the red basically means you're pretty much using the same amount of power as the state you're in. So anything orange and red is very bad, and you need way more power than you have. Anything in yellow is still taxing your systems. Have you noticed every single place is like that? Because, that's what Trump was talking about. You need like 3 times the power for this bullshit. Now, this is a map of data center suitability. This is a heat map, and it basically shows where they can build more data centers that would be suitable for their necessity of power and water usage. So if you're living in these highlighted areas, you're next. And then here are all the placements of data centers throughout the United States, and of course the amount. And you can see that data centers are basically becoming the only thing we're doing here in America. Talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. Now let me show you where we're at right now in the United States, and you can see how bad it actually is. So here's a map of your data centers. You can see, can't escape it. Basically, you cannot escape it outside of Montana and a little bit of Oregon. It is nationwide everywhere, and every community will be experiencing these data center hives, and mass surveillance is already starting. Oh, by the way, here's the congressional district map over the data centers, and you can plainly see, except for a couple, that most Republican states are where the data centers are coming in. Although liberal states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Colorado are starting to get on board. Same with Washington State. So it was mainly just Republican states, but now liberal states are starting to join in, and in some cases even go higher, like here in Chicago. So regardless of politics, it looks like it's coming whether you like it or not. Republicans just had more, but now liberals are starting to ramp up like gangbusters.
That video came from Sup America, and yeah, it's bad. And this whole data center stuff is only getting worse. And like I said, they're lying to us about their true purpose. Another theory is that these data centers are collecting the resources to power what's ever below the earth. They're a civilization below the earth, but again, that's one theory. But we are just being enclosed by data center. And like he said, does not matter your politics. It's coming for you one way or the other, no matter how you vote.
Tim Peake on the ISS, ready to do a live interview with this studio audience, and you've got this girl with a hoop and a ball, and she supposedly sent this experiment for Tim to do while on the ISS. Well, Tim did it on the ISS. He did it in front of a blue checkered screen and refused to do it live.
Now, Tim, you've also been doing some demonstrations for science students, and one of those science students is Emily. Now, you've got some kit there that you actually designed for Tim, really to just show how difficult it is to demonstrate physics here on Earth. And it's a track and a ball. Just show us what actually happens there. And gravity is really just pulling that ball back down. Now, Tim has actually done the same experiment. You weren't able to do it live, but you weren't able to do it live, but you weren't able to do it live, you weren't able to do it live, you weren't able to do it live. But we don't seem to have a video, unfortunately. But the ball the ball does continue all the way around. Just explain, Tim, what's happening.
I'd rather Tim explain why he couldn't do it live. Was it that hard to bring out the little hoop and ball? Or is it because the blue checkered backdrop allows them to basically CGI that apparatus into his hand? And that's why he's standing so still.
Yes, again, it's one of the phenomena of microgravity. It's a wonderful environment to demonstrate some of those basic scientific principles.
That is true. It's such a wonderful environment to demonstrate some of those basic principles of physics, however, not live.
How does it make...
I saw that video off Barry Stepp's channel, and the more and more that comes out, the more BS that we can see that surrounds NASA. I mean, why couldn't he do this live? What's the big deal? It's just a ball through a hoop. But apparently he couldn't, and he had to do it in front of a blue screen. I mean, how much more evidence does one need?
Back when I used to work at Toyota, I used to sell these Tundra hybrids, and I had a customer come in one time that had placed an order for about 8 months because he wanted a Tundra limited hybrid. So after 8 months, he put a deposit. He's been waiting, everything's okay. And then finally, I get a call from the manager saying that the vehicle is allocated. It's coming in 3 days. I called him. Perfect. We got an appointment. Everything's good. When he came in, I looked at him like this. He had this black machine in his hand. I'm like, what's this black machine for? I thought maybe it has maybe a health issue or something. And then he's like, let's go check out that Tundra. I said, okay. As soon as we get to the Tundra, he turns on this machine, and he opens the front doors, he puts it on there, and then it doesn't beep. And then he goes to the bed side of the truck, he puts it there, it doesn't beep. Then he puts it on the back seats, and it beeps like crazy. He closes the door, he says, no, hey, I don't want this car no more. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Why did it beep? He said, this is a radiation detector. He said, I got this truck because I want to, be able to be more comfortable with my kids when I'm taking them out long road trips. He said, I'm not putting my kids in this back seat so they could fry, just so we could have some type of comfort of gas mileage. And I kind of, I never looked at it like that before. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, if the hybrid's that bad for you sitting on top of it, how about an electric car? How much radiation is coming off? How sick can you be to drive a car, that's gonna give off radiation all the time? What type of sicknesses are we getting in our bodies that we're not aware of? And he gave me like a little life lesson that people really are waking up to negative things of the modern technology that's gonna give us health issues over time. He brought a little machine, and that machine by itself he told me, hey, close the door, I'm done, I don't want this truck. He went and he bought an older model, almost the same price, just to avoid that radiation on his kids and the health of his kids.
That great video came from Antar Vlogs, and the thing is, with them wanting to make AI surveillance mandatory in all these new cars by 2027, I asked myself what's going to happen to all these older cars that people want to avoid things like what this individual is talking about, and with them now putting ethanol 15 in the people's gas tanks for these older cars, it's going to wreck a lot of these older cars to the point that you either walk, take a bike, take public transportation, or buy one of these new cars so you can drive home to your house that has a data center inside. Crazy, crazy world. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.